Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Make Sure Your City is Ready for the Next Disaster. The severity of impact has varied greatly, but every county in Georgia has fallen under a state of emergency since 2017, and there have been 3 major hurricane events for 3 consecutive years. The purpose of today's session is to provide a basic understanding of the emergency management system and to equip participants with action steps and knowledge to successfully prepare your jurisdictions for the eventuality of disasters. We have an esteemed group of speakers and panelists today that have agreed to join us. First, we have Charlie English. Charlie is the National Emergency Management Liaison for the American Red Cross. He is past president of the National Emergency Management Association. He was elected by his peers to the board of the National Governors Association Homeland Security Advisors Council, and he was director of training and standards for Georgia Post. Charlie attended Georgia State University for his undergrad work, and he later received his master's degree in Homeland Security and Defense at the Naval Postgraduate School. Next, we have Homer Bryson. Homer is the director of the Georgia Emergency Management and Homeland Security Agency. He has previously served as commissioner of the Department of Corrections, deputy commissioner of the Department of Natural Resources, and is colonel of the Department of National Resources Law Enforcement Section. He has also taught as an adjunct professional for the Georgia Law Enforcement Command College at Columbus State University and helped develop security plans for events such as the Super Bowl, the G8 Summit, and the Olympic Games. He has served on numerous boards, including the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, Georgia Post, the Behavioral Health Coordinating Council, and was chairman of the Department of Community Supervision Board. Director Bryson holds an undergrad degree from Valdosta State University and a master's in public administration from Columbus State University. We also have a panel of city managers with experience in dealing with recent hurricane events. First, we have John Holman. John is the city manager since St. Mary's and has been there since 2014. John is a former naval officer. He has a master's degree in public administration and has more than 25 years of experience managing cities and townships. Terrell Jacobs is currently a municipal operations consultant with GMA. He previously served as city manager for Douglas and Union City and has been involved in local and regional government for over 25 years. Terrell has a master's degree in public administration. He's very involved with GCCMA, has taught City Government 101, and serves on the board of MEAG. Thirdly, we have Ron Feldner. Ron is currently the city manager for Garden City, where he has been for more than 9 years. Ron has a civil engineering degree from Georgia Tech and has more than 25 years of civil engineering experience. Ron holds a professional engineering license and serves on the GMEB's board of directors. Other staff we have in the room at the end of the table here, we have James Westbury. He's an attorney, and he's the coverage counsel and claims manager for GMA's GERMA program. James was very involved with the last Hurricane Michael down in southwest Georgia. And we also have Dan Beck, not sure where Dan's in the back of the room, and he is the director of Local Government Risk Management Services, or LGRMS, and worked with both counties and cities on loss control efforts. And lastly, we have Randy Logan. He's the deputy director of GMA and is overall the insurance programs. I appreciate everyone being here, and by the way, I'm Stan Deese, the Director of Risk Management Services. First thing we want to do is show a short video clip to kind of set the tone for today's session. And this was produced by GMA, and they've been kind enough to let us use it here. So. Please welcome Charlie English. Charlie, here's your.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Oh, no. I appreciate, can everybody hear me all right without me putting a, huh?
Grandmother's microphones.
Oh, okay.
You want that or you want this, Charles?
I better do this, I'm right. Which one do you want, Holman?
I'll just, it don't matter. I don't care.
How about that? Yeah, turn it on. How about that? All right, where was it? No, that's right. So, thank y'all for coming, and before we get started, I just did want to mention that I wanted to thank Randy and Stan and Dan, because, they really have a passion for being servant leaders and preparing cities for what's to come and face them. And there's so many things, and this is just a little piece of it. And I understand that the part of being ready for disasters. And also my friend, Director Homer Bryson, and we won't talk about how far we go back into law enforcement, but now he's the director of GEMA, and from day one, when we mentioned wanting to do this, and how can I help and how can I get on board, because we want to make sure that cities are prepared for disasters. So thank you very much, Homer, for all the support that you've given this effort, and our distinguished panel as well. They reviewed my material ahead of time, so I'm calling them the lie detectors. So they're going to keep me honest, and they're going to be our lie detectors, and they're going to jump in and stop me, as I hope you do. I have a little script prepared, and we can go through that, but I would much rather it go in the direction that you want the class to go into than the way I think it needs to go. So, and to that end, you will notice, I hope you got the student guide. I probably should have called it a student guide. I should have called it a manager's and city managers and mayor's guide probably, but it's our talking points. And what I'll do, as I was putting this together, and it's about 10 pages long, I got to thinking, it reminded me of the guy that was a world famous Bible salesman. You've heard about him, haven't you? He was this high schooler, had a Bible store in Main Street, and always wanted to be a Bible salesman. But like me, he had a speech impediment that he had to learn how to overcome. He stuttered just a little bit. So he went in and he talked. He said, I just want to be the Bible salesman for your organization. And I said, well, are you sure? Well, just give me a chance. Well, as the story goes, he does really well. And he becomes the best Bible salesman for that store and for the whole state of Georgia and for the nation. And he got invited to a convention much like this to talk about his secrets on being the best Bible salesman in the country. And they asked him, and he said, well, it's really easy. He said, I just go up to a door and I knock on it and I just say, do you want to buy a Bible or do you want me to read it to you? So I promise I won't read this to you, but if you'll take it with you, you'll have something you can go by, and there'll be plenty of information that I'm sure I'll leave out as we talk. One of the things we thought about with this class was we didn't really want to get it with the what I call major on the blue light and siren phase. We wanted to get you that's certainly important, but the design of this is to talk about the emergency management system that exists in the state and how that interfaces with FEMA and other things, and some pitfalls that Homer and I have seen over the years and the panel has seen and you've experienced, and how to get over those things. Things that I wish I had done, or things that I wish I'd been better prepared for when it comes to especially FEMA type declarations and all that. So we're gonna probably go a mile wide and an inch deep. But if there's somewhere you want to dive down and get deep, we'll do that too. So, we're looking forward to the class, and please feel free to interrupt. I don't want to spend a lot of time doing this, but with the intimate crowd we have, I would like to get an idea of where everybody's from. And if you don't mind, ma'am, we'll start with you. And if you can just tell us your name and where you're from.
I'm Carla Gowan, counselor from Fort Valley, Georgia, Peach County.
You're the photographer.
I am
Okay.
indeed.
Where are you from?
George Municipal.
Sir.
Ambrose Clay, City of College Park, Georgia, next to Hartsville, Jackson, Arizona.
Well, I'm Joanne Wood, from City Council, Canton, Georgia.
And I'm Larry Grigger, City Council from Lyons, Georgia, southeast.
Randy Logan from Tyrone, Georgia. I'm with GMA.
Charlie Davis from Douglasville, Georgia.
Hello, my name is Victoria Jones, I'm from the city of Louisville. Clementine Washington, the city of Midway.
Marty Hughes from Kennesaw, Georgia.
Marvin Cook, City Council, Eastport, Georgia. This is Mr. College Park.
Yeah. I went to Lakeshore High. Hey, I'm from the south side of Atlanta.
Clark Bodie, City of Atlanta. Good to see you, Charlie.
Alan Rasty, City of St. Mary, Georgia.
Rusty Vega, Department of Community Affairs.
Johnny Casey, Brunswick.
Kate Pippen Jackson.
Matt Simmons, Gallagher.
Scott Thomas, City of Gallagher.
Brandon Douglas, City of Jasper. Dan Paul from Milledgeville.
Bobby Lester from City of Jonesboro.
Crystal Johnson, Councilmember of City.
Bob Morris, City Manager, beautiful city of Manhattan.
Joy H. Councilwoman, Dundee, Georgia.
Dennis Smith, City Manager, Group. Ed Floyd, City of Matter.
Dennis Bergen, City Manager, great city of Louisville.
And I'm Jim Greer. I'm lucky enough to be his mayor.
Oh, okay.
He's mayor, city of Samantha.
I'm Lindsay Albright, Village College Watson.
John Ramey, City Council, Hazelhurst, Georgia.
Tom Queen, City of Rockmore.
Joe Henderson, City of Rockmore.
Gary Hicks from Greenwich.
Dan, we met you.
Carol Richard, Mayor Pro Tem, Walnut Grove.
Okay, thank you. So as I prepared this, I thought, this would go quick, and then I got to writing my notes, and I realized it may not be just in 2 or 3 minutes, but, I'm going to violate that well, first of all, I think there's a misconception that the emergency management system generally around the country is based on states and counties, and that's really not true. There's just a couple of things that's county-based, but everything else, the cities are central to the emergency management system in the state and in the country. But I am gonna, so I wanted to dispel if you thought, well, this really don't impact us because we don't have a EMA director or whatever. That's not true. And so we're gonna go through a few things today that I think will convince you that you need to be very intimately involved, as you probably already are, in the, not just emergency and public safety, but in the emergency management system that exists in our state. But I'm going to violate, I said I'm not going to do the blue light siren phase, but now the one point I'll make today about the blue light siren phase is regardless of how small or how large you are, I think not only do you need to have an emergency management plan and an emergency operations plan, but part of that, you got to have a warning plan. And it's not that, I think everybody knows the National Weather Service is going to be the ones to do the weather warnings and that type of thing, but when you have original jurisdiction, if there's a hazmat spill in your area, in your city, I think you need to have a document that describes how you're going to warn the citizens. I've had the pleasure of seeing that go very well. I've had the displeasure of seeing that not go so well over the years when people needed to be warned. So I would encourage you very much to have a warning plan. I know the nuclear power plant jurisdictions, a lot of those have no weather radios, and they have special agreements with the weather service to where they can warn the public. Now, and I don't know enough about this, but there's a whole integrated public warning system, and you'll hear it called iPaws, and there's some capabilities involved in that. So please take seriously your responsibility in cities to warn your constituents of the eventualities of certain emergencies. And I know, and I don't want to put you on the spot, Hunter, but if you want to jump in on these, please do. But have a single point of contact in your jurisdiction. It might be you, but I think you really need to have a single point of contact in your city to deal with the emergency management type things that we're going to talk about later. It's a very dynamic system. Director Bryce and I was talking before the class. Things change all the time. I was looking at some regulation. I said, man, it's about time to get used to when something changes. So have somebody that's plugged into the system that can take some online training and can go to some training to stay abreast of the type of issues that come up when it comes to emergency management, and it will help you and your folks to be able to build the kind of relationships that's going to be necessary for those to have the trust that you'll need in these types of events. We're going to talk about this later. This is just kind of like I said, the mile wide. Be able to conduct damage assessments. You need to know what's happened in your jurisdiction and how to report that. You need to know what counts. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what counts toward getting that federal declaration. And it's just good to have situational awareness, period, as you well know. But then how do you quantify that? And with 500-something cities, a little bit of damage in each of those cities builds up. Add that into the counties and what the state had, then you're looking at some significant damage. So you are a key part in being able to justify FEMA coming in and having a declaration in your jurisdiction in the state. Emergency ordinances. I'm not the lawyer, James is the lawyer, but having emergency ordinances that empower you and your staff during times of emergency is critical. And I want to talk just a little bit about the difference between local emergencies and state. And later on, I think Director Bryson's going to talk about state, when the state declares a state of emergency, but also with the federal types states of emergency. But what I would say is your organization is basically empowering itself to act a certain way and do certain things when disasters happen and your chief executive or your council declares that. And so we're going to go this way. And you'll notice in these handouts, this handout and another one that's out on the table, I would encourage you to take that to your purchasing agents. That say, do you follow your own rules? And so sometimes the rules need to change when there's disaster. And so that's a very important, and there are model ordinances and states of emergency for your local jurisdiction. I encourage you to be serious about doing those types of things, especially when it comes to the emergency procurements, because you'll be judged on whether you and they'll be funding withheld or granted based on the fact that whether you follow your own rules in those times of disaster. I'm going to go ahead and jump in real quick to the differences between the various disasters. Another thing that used to get me, I worked at GEMA for a little while before I went to the Red Cross, and declare a state of emergency. You know, y'all gonna do what you need to do anyway. You know, you're gonna go help local jurisdictions. Now, I don't want this to look like, you know, I'm saying, oh, this is an emergency and all, heck's broken loose, and, you know, I don't want to create panic and that thing. But, you know, the fact of the matter is, we're gonna ask the president to declare the disaster. We need to be able to declare it an emergency. We need to say it's bad, or they're not gonna do it. So there's a little game playing going on there, you know? So, same in your situation. You need to be able to say, this is a disaster. We declared a state of emergency. We've enacted our emergency ordinances. This is bad. So the state and other people will know that you think this is a serious situation. It doesn't work for the federal to declare the disaster, and you haven't taken the actions that you need to as a state or a local jurisdiction to say that it is, you know, to declare that it is. I'm going to say what the state does for Director Bryson, but he can talk a little bit in just a second about what the state does and what a state of emergency when the governor declares that. But I will tell you with FEMA, there's all kinds of different disasters they can declare. You know, they can declare an emergency declaration, which means you only get a partial declaration to kind of help clean up, maybe offset some public safety costs. But you know, a lot of times they're kind of tricky. And if you start picking up on the fact that I don't trust FEMA, if you don't pick up on that now, you will by the end of the class. Now I love it. They're some of the best people in the world, but they operate in a system that will absolutely drive you crazy. And it's a very difficult system to deal with. And so I'm going to get over here where I don't have to do the echo. But FEMA can also, they'll declare you an emergency declaration and say, you know, it's going to be limited to direct federal assistance only. So we're not going to give you any money, but we can dispatch some federal workers to help. So that's one way. Then there is a major declaration. We're going to get into the details in just a minute, where you get the whole, you know, individual assistance and the public assistance and the money comes and that type of thing. But there's also a fire management grant. And so when a wildfire is threatening inhabited property and actions will need to take place, a fire management grant can be awarded. There's also small business administration disasters that get declared. So there's a lot of different types of federal disasters, which all of that just is to say, you need to know Director Bryson and his folks because they know all this stuff. So have that single point of contact, have people that stay up with this so that they will know the types of assistance and the types of actions that's necessary and the help that you can have when disasters hit in your area. Let's consider establishing mutual aid agreements. I'm sure all your fire departments and police departments, emergency medical have these in place, but I would ask that you examine your mutual aid agreements, and would also say that back in the day, I know there was a guy named Mike Stewart that worked for GMA, and he was a former city manager, and he had some mutual aid agreements to where the city managers who had been involved in a disaster in the past would go help the city manager who had just gotten hit by a disaster. So I would encourage you to get a buddy or two that you know and say, hey, you know, during these times of disaster, you can kind of help to come in and help me with this paperwork and help the types of things that cities need to do while I'm encumbered by this disaster. So that's a little bit of new bend on emergency management. Terrell was telling me just last night that, you know, situations he had been involved with where that relationship existed between he and another official, and it allowed for that free flow of equipment and material and personnel to help in situations. And we'll talk about pre-disaster contracts a little bit later on, what we need can. I think that's just a great, thing to do. It really is, to go ahead and acknowledge ahead of time that there's things and contracts that need to be in place that's already been vetted the right way to begin with before the disaster happens.
Charlie, can we chime in?
Yeah, I asked, I've been waiting.
All right, let me start these guys off. City manager don't mind talking, is that right? Ron?
We're shy.
We're shy, yeah. Okay, can you hear me? To Charlie's point, just want to give y'all a perspective. I was city manager of Douglas for 11 years in Union City and Athens and Lake Cross systems. But one of the things that we often challenge with these type of disasters, you sometimes don't have those relationships, those mutual aid agreements in play, but you don't really know what you're going to be impacted by. And, all of us got a lot to do. Your staff has a lot to do. And this is probably the farthest thing from their mind. The day-to-day things are the most critical ones that they're dealing with. So, going through this situation, trying to figure out where those mutual aids that you need to establish is so critical. Let me give you an example. I knew Larry Hanson when he was in Valdosta and I was in Douglas. So he called me, and we had boom trucks. We do leave and limb pickup in Douglas, and we were able to work out agreement. But the critical thing, like I was telling Charlie last night, is that some cities don't have those types of relationships. And when there's a crisis that comes along, they're like, well, what do I do? I don't have that, connection with this community or whatever that could loan me some boom trucks or personnel, yada, yada, yada. So you need to think about that, because obviously, what if I didn't have a relationship with Larry or vice versa? That would have made it a challenge to me in regards to that. So having those relationships is very, very important. If you can get them established and memorialized, that's the key thing. That way you know what you can expect going forward. But I do know it's so critical. Some of y'all don't have a city clerk. Now, since I'm with Jim now, I'm finding out everybody didn't have 200 or 300 staff people like I had in Dallas. So you got one person. You may have 3 people. So trying to help figure out how you get that done is critical. So, and one of the things that I've been doing as a GMA staff person, operations consultant, to help you with that in regards to putting those pieces together and maybe formalizing some of those relationship mutual aid. So anyway, just food for thought. I'll let the other guys talk. Sure.
Got a question?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm a city councilwoman, and I don't know much about this, but I just found out this morning when I asked my mayor what class to go to. She said when we had the last disaster, the county decided not to declare a disaster. So the city had a really hard time getting funded. Okay, with that as a basis, I would like to be a lot more proactive, but I don't have the knowledge. Should I go home and say, we need to appoint this person with knowledge? Or can I suggest that I be in charge and go get the training?
I can answer that. You can definitely go get the training. And I would encourage you to do that, because your job is to represent your locality. We work through the counties, because that's sort of how FEMA is set up on the disaster assessment side of the county, but ultimately most of the homes and the structures and stuff are in the cities to begin with. And so you need to be whoever the county EMA director is, y'all should be on a first name basis. Terrell mentioned all the things you need to do in advance. We call that blue sky days in the emergency management world. These blue sky days, that's when you want to be working on this. Make those connections, make those relationships, build that, and then when you have an event, you're picking up the phone and you're talking to somebody you know. But if there's a situation where it feels like there's enough damage that's going to rise to that level, and there's an issue between the city and the county, we'll certainly step in and look at that and give an honest assessment of what we think with that too. So anyway, my name's Homer Bryson, as I said, and I want to thank you for allowing me to be here today. And kind of the lead into this is all disasters start locally. God, I hate to break that news to y'all. And guess what? All disasters end locally. It's going to fall in your lap and on your plate and your responsibility, and you manage that when you have the resources to do it. If you have an event that's beyond your capability and your resources, you do your mutual aid that Terrell mentioned. You talk to your buddies in your neighboring county. If we go above that and it comes to the state level, then that's what we're there for. We don't come unless you call. We're there to help you and support you. We don't come to take over. We're there solely to help you and support you. And the reality is this. If you call and ask for assistance, we're coming whether there's a state-declared disaster or whether there's a federally declared disaster. It doesn't matter. We'll talk about the differences, as Charlie mentioned earlier. We're coming anyway. You have a disaster, it's beyond your capabilities. You request help through us. How do you do that? How do you do that? When we stood up for Hurricane Michael, we had 200 people working in our state operations center, and we sent about 2,500 state employees to Southwest Georgia. It's a lot of moving parts, a lot going on. There's a system, it's called Web EOC. It's a program that allows county EMA directors, all 159 counties have an account in Web EOC. They should know how to use it. If there is a resource request, it needs to be entered in Web EOC. Hurricane Michael, we had 999 resource requests entered into Web EOC. I'd have paid $5 to got one more. But anyway, that's our preferred method of getting your resource requests is to come through there. It pops up automatically. We automatically assign staff to look at that. What I ask from you is if there's a problem, if you've already entered a request in and you're not receiving assistance, that's when you pick up the phone and call us. Because when you have multiple cities, counties, half the state involved in an event, you're getting calls from the mayor or the county commission chairman or the sheriff, and sometimes you're getting completely different information. Sometimes you're getting the same information, and you've got 3 or 4 different people in our state operations center that's trying to work the same resource requests. So it helps us, and it'll get resources to you quicker. We want to be there to help you and support you. We really, really do.
Can cities use it to have an account on?
Yes, you can. You can. And I would encourage you, we're doing this now, it's one of the things that we've learned through the years is there is no substitute for that local eye-to-eye contact. And so we're trying as much as physically possible to stand up one of our employees or at least a state employee from another agency and have them in those county emergency operations centers. So we've got that one-on-one personal contact. We got boots on the ground. So I would, again, it goes back to the blue sky days, building those relationships. Your locality and the county, y'all should have a clear understanding if you have an event, how do you stand that up and how do you manage that together mutually at the local level? And that's having somebody, maybe it's having somebody in that county EOC, and it's a local, and every community is different, and the relationships are different, but that's really where it starts. It makes a world of difference. It really makes a world of difference. And then if it becomes beyond the state's capacity to provide the assistance that's being requested, that's when we call federal government and ask their assistance. Charlie mentioned, what does the governor declaring a state of emergency really do? Since if you call us, we're coming anyway without one. It really does a lot of different things, but there's really 3 main things that it does. One of them, it absolutely requires state agencies volunteer when there's not an emergency to come assist you, and they're going to do it. But once the governor declares a state of emergency, it requires state agencies to respond and assist. The other thing that it does is it relaxes the purchasing and procurement rules at the state level. So it makes it easier for us to contract for goods and services to help support whatever the need is in your local community. And thirdly, it activates a state emergency operations plan. And that plan is designed to cover just about any type of disaster that happens in our state. But the real importance of that plan being activated is it's a precursor to applying for federal disaster assistance. So we have to enact that before we can request federal disaster assistance. Sort of how it operates. Now, there's really three main categories of disaster assistance that usually gets talked about. The most common is public assistance. That's the one you're going to be probably the most interested in. And if you have an event, FEMA, at the request of the locals, FEMA, and we'll send one of our employees, a field coordinator, and we'll do help with the preliminary damage assessment. Damage assessments for public assistance are based on uninsured losses. Think city halls, schools, debris removal from public right-of-ways, water systems. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. FEMA guidelines are based on population, and our population in Georgia requires us to meet a minimum of $14.53 million in uninsured losses before we will receive any federal assistance through public assistance. $14.53 million. And then individually, and each county has to meet a requirement too. But unless the state meets that 14.53, no county is going to get declared. So we're going to work really hard on the front end. We're going to go to where the most damage is, and we can run up the numbers. And I'm just being honest. We can run the numbers up as quickly as we can to get to that cap so we can request assistance. So get this a lot, and I understand the politics of it. You may get a federal disaster declaration that doesn't include you. Maybe your neighbors have it. Maybe every neighbor around you has it and you don't. Don't get too excited about that. Because to get the declaration, it's the federal bureaucracy at its finest. But once we have it, it actually comes to my level and the local regional level at FEMA that we can add counties to it. So it's very easy for us to add counties to that as we get the data in to support that. So just know that. Just because you're not initially declared doesn't mean you're not possibly going to be eligible moving forward down the road. Since Hurricane Matthew, we've had $750 million worth of public assistance coming from the federal government to the state. Now, out of this, when you have a disaster declaration and you receive the public assistance, FEMA pays 75% of that. So we're left to pay the 25%. Historically, the state has paid 10% and the locals have paid 15%. Ultimately, that's a decision of the governor. But know this, whatever state resources come to you, we're going to pick up the entire 25% of our cost. So there will be absolutely no cost coming from the state to the local governments for any support at all. The next type of disaster assistance that you'll hear a lot about is individual assistance. Again, kind of like public assistance, it's based on uninsured losses. And this goes directly to people in your community that's received damages from the storms. It is very nebulous as to how FEMA decides whether you're going to have individual assistance turned on or not. I'm just being absolutely honest with you. There's no financial criteria that's involved with it. It really is sort of I don't even know the word for it, but they have a lot of discretion with it. I'll just say that. Typically, what I've gathered in my tenure is you're going to have either major damaged or destroyed homes, uninsured homes, that's going to have to total into the hundreds before you're going to get any individual assistance. Probably 250 minimum, but it's going to have to be in the hundreds, and the key is uninsured losses.
Are you just talking about direct damage, or are you talking about economic loss?
Direct damage. This is direct damage to the individual. None of this comes to the government. This is strictly to your citizens. And this money has a cap on it. It's capped at $34,900. That's the max that any citizen can get. And rarely does anybody get that. Since Matthew up to current, we've received $36 million in the state for individual disaster assistance and have written checks to between 17,000 and 18,000 individuals. So if you do the math, they're averaging about $2,000 a claim. It's really just designed short-term to try to help you get on your feet a little bit. And then thirdly is hazard mitigation. Hazard mitigation funds come to Georgia, and they're different than public assistance and individual assistance. Public assistance, individual assistance is money to fix what's already been broken by a storm. Hazard mitigation funds are proactive funds. There are funds that you can use in your community to make it more resilient so that you'll have fewer damages down the road. A 2018 Pew Research study just showed that in Georgia, for every dollar we spend on hazard mitigation projects, we save $6.50 when we have an event. $1 to $6.50 makes sense. Great investment for us. And the reality is this, with all that's happened in our state over the last 3 years, we've got about $125 million coming into the state for hazard mitigation projects. And we've made every county in Georgia eligible to receive hazard mitigation funds. So we're working on several hundred projects, hazard mitigation projects now.
I have a question in the city of Lewis and two counties on hazard mitigation. We recognized some shortfalls when the hurricane came through 2 years ago, and they've had a change in emergency management, what have you. What's fine, there's a disconnect because you're a city, not a county, and y'all want to talk to the county. We understand that, but we have a lull there that really hurt us. And even today, we sit back and we have needs of communication, in our view, haven't been fulfilled or satisfied to what we need. And the other side of it is resources available to us. We need backup generators we didn't have last time.
Yep.
Is there a direct connect that we can get?
Yes, Terry Lunn. Terry Lunn. Sort of on the response side of the house, yes, we do work with the counties, but when it comes to public assistance and the individual assistance and with the hazard mitigation funds, we'll work with anybody that's interested. We do lots of work with the cities on those projects, and we don't try to funnel all of this through the counties. We want to work direct with you just to cut down on another layer of bureaucracy, to be honest with you, and to take some of that political stuff out of it. Yes, ma'am.
Last year, since we were having problems with hazard mitigation, what we did is we set up committees, like we had 2 representatives from Mayheim, the cities, and then 2 representatives from the other city, and then 2 representatives from the county, and then we had 2 representatives from Gina. We all met together, met a few times, and went over our whole plan and what we needed to do to benefit everybody, cities, county, we just tried to get to where we all got together and talked.
Well, again, it's that, as Terrell said, those blue sky days, y'all get together and work, but it's interesting in that if you have a city that actually resides in 2 separate counties, that can create some unique issues that you're going to have to deal with, because again, on the declaration side, FEMA bases everything on a county. And that creates issues that we all have to work through and concerns and stuff for us. But yes, the hazard mitigation funds, plans, generators, cutoff switches for lift stations so that you can attach generators to them, sirens, acquisition of flood-prone properties, that's a biggie. You can make a lot of difference there, and actually in the metro area, a lot has been done with that through the years. Albany, a fair amount's been done with that through the years too. So there are a lot of opportunities there that's available to you as a local community. Yes, sir.
How hard is it to get that funding?
Pretty simple, actually. If you have the relationship and can talk to your local EMA director, he's very familiar with the hazard mitigation process. If that's not working at your level, contact us direct and we'll come to you and talk to you about it. Be glad to. 2 people out of Lula. Does Jim Walters know y'all are here?
You know, the interesting thing too is in our mutual aid agreement that we have, we're very fortunate for the 2 counties that we occupy. But I'll tell you one thing, when everybody's taxed, and you have a mutual aid agreement, and everybody's already stretched them, we need to go talk to even further counties further out, so maybe they can assist us as well.
Yeah.
For about a week there, everybody was on your own, and that wasn't a fun experience.
Yeah, it really is. Especially if you're a coastal county, talking about hurricanes. If you've got nursing homes, hospitals, those type facilities, you need to have those relationships with inland counties and have a plan in place to where those people are going to, how are they transported. It really makes a world of difference. Again, if it's already ongoing and you haven't already thought about it, then you're behind the curve to begin with. You really, really are. And Charlie, I'll hush if you want me to, or I'll keep talking.
Can I ask you one question that some of them might want to know? On the individual assistance, I know some of our citizens back in Douglas when I was there, they were complaining that, you can hear me, they had to apply for SBA loan first before they could get individual assistance. And, you know, some of our citizens grumbled because they had to go through that process. You know, you got to get the credit check and all that good stuff. So some were frustrated, going back to your point about the bureaucracy of it, getting that. So can you maybe speak to that, because I know some of their citizens, they have to go through it if they haven't already gone through it.
Yeah, and what happens is when we do preliminary damage assessments, they'll do them in 2 phases. One will be looking at the public side of the house, and that'll be your damages and stuff, and then there'll be a completely separate assessment done that'll be looking at the individual assistance piece. Typically, when they're doing that assessment, you'll have FEMA and SBA representatives there together gathering that information. And usually the threshold to receive SBA support is much less. They want to say yes, they really do, is much less than individual assistance. So you may get just one, or you may wind up with both. But they really shouldn't. I don't think, and I'll check on that myself, but they really shouldn't. I'm guessing what's happening, they're taking the information for both sides of the house at the same time, and there's confusion with some of the locals about how they're doing that probably.
Yeah, I could address that directly from personal experience. While we're in the middle of Irma down in North Wildwood, down in St. Mary's, sorry about that, Al. Got a couple of storms. Irma, my own house had its roof removed due to Irma. Came away. When you're going over, and both GMA and FEMA and Small Business Administration set up in the same location. So when you go over to apply, and I went over to apply with my wife, you stop in, you check in, you see the FEMA people. The FEMA people will take your information. The FEMA people will then send you over to the SBA people. You fill in another application with the SBA, which is a lot like the application you filled in with FEMA. SBA will take your information then and send you back to FEMA. It really doesn't take that long. It sounds more complicated. It's not. You go over to FEMA, you provide them the same information, this form that you filled with SBA, they get it, it's given a project number. Then they do their reviews. We did not qualify for FEMA. We did qualify for SBA, which is a very low-interest loan to get your repairs. I did not qualify for FEMA because I had homeowners
Too much insurance.
and flood insurance. So therefore, I did not qualify for FEMA. But I did qualify for SBA for a very low-interest loan to get the repair done. That was what most people qualified for the Small Business Association loan. For the FEMA, very few people end up qualifying for the FEMA. If you're insured, you have some assets, you're not going to qualify for the FEMA. FEMA really is for the uninsured individual. The SBA, though, is very helpful. They take you through the process. They will get you the blue tarp for your roof when you need it. You will go out, get your repairs done. They will send you the check early on so you can get it finished. As I understood from the people that did get FEMA, they also did well. They came right through, the money came through. But we were declared for individual and public assistance. And if you had a question, you could go right back to the facility they were at and follow up on your applications, or you could do it online. So it sounds a little bit complicated, but in all reality, once you get into it, it's not that hard to work your way through it. A little patience, a little understanding, bring along your insurance, yes.
Well, if you were insured, why did you need that low-interest loan? Why did the insurance company?
Under flood insurance, normally you have a $9,500 to $10,000 deductible.
Yep.
It would be nice to get that deductible covered by a very low-interest loan, especially when your daughter's getting married in 3 months. You gotta look at things there, you get worried. But
FEMA wouldn't consider that deductible uninsured?
no, that's, if you're uninsured, that's something else. No, a deductible is not uninsured. A deductible just means you're insured, but you have a deductible. And if you look at your flood insurance policy, and I recommend anybody in my area that have flood insurance, you will notice that that deductible is a certain percentage of the value of your home. Usually around $9,200, $10,000, but that is a standard deductible for flood insurance. Easily taken care of. And SBA just gave me a very, I mean, it was such a low interest loan, I couldn't turn it down. So it worked out, but I did not qualify for FEMA. FEMA is really as if you're uninsured.
Yeah.
It's the best way to look at it, if you are uninsured. But most people, most of the homeowners weren't thinking, well, small business, I should be a business. No. You can be a resident and you can get funding from FEMA at 2.5, 3%.
Yeah.
It's a good interest loan. It's over 15 years. You can pay it off anytime you want. It doesn't count against your credit rating nor against as a mortgage on your home unless you borrow over $25,000.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate your time. Ron, I know you had a couple of things you might want to say. Would you mind walking in for us?
We've, this out of here maybe. Yeah, we, in Garden City, we've talked a lot about kind of the event itself here in the meeting so far, this discussion. Some of the things we've done in Garden City have been, I'm going to call them advanced planning issues. And, you know, we've been doing some solid planning over the last several years in our community ahead of these storms. And the only way you really know if your planning worked or is working is when you get a calibrating event. And the calibrating event was Hurricane Matthew. And back 2011, 2012 timeframe, the city invested in some projects and specifically used coastal incentive grant money here in the coastal region to develop two plans, a safe growth audit and a stormwater master plan. In the safe growth audit, we identified how we as a community can influence where development goes so that we keep it away from potential hazard areas, how we can improve existing development to protect it against hazards when they occur, and then to enhance areas where developments occurred where we've got to shore it up, so to speak. So what we did there was within our zoning ordinance, our floodplain management ordinance, and our stormwater management ordinances, we were doing what we could to avoid impacts to the perils that we identified in our community, which the main one was flooding. So by going ahead and making adjustments to those different development ordinances, we were, theoretically, getting out in front of the issues regarding new developments that were coming in an effort to not make them susceptible to storm impacts, flooding, and so on. The Stormwater Master Plan kind of drilled down a little bit deeper because one of the areas that we needed to get more information on from our safe growth audit was to better understand our floodplains and our watersheds in our community so that when these storms occur, we can anticipate where we're going to have damage and impacts. And we furthermore took the Stormwater Master Plan, and I think Hurricane Matthew might have been the first hurricane event, or at least for us in 2016, where the National Hurricane Center would upload storm surge prediction data on their website. You could then download that information to your computer at City Hall, and then we could lay that as a layer within our stormwater plan, and we could see the areas that were anticipated to be inundated by the storm surge. By doing that, several days ahead of landfall, our public safety people were out in some areas, one particular area, Mobile Home Park, making sure that those people understood the peril that they might find themselves in if they tried to ride the storm out. So I did a presentation on that a few years ago where you could actually see the floodplain and then superimpose the storm surge map because they're not always the same. And we felt like, we provided a valuable service to those people by using technology in order to identify where those hazards could have put them in harm's way, the families and so on. So once again, planning, technology have really been an asset to us as we've dealt with, Hurricane Matthew and Hurricane Irma. I think we did pretty good in Matthew. We did a lot better in Irma. One thing we noticed talking about policies, purchasing policy, of course, got refined after Matthew. But we did kind of an incident level ordinance and plan where we described and defined the tier level. Because what we found was that when the storm's on the way and we're doing emergency preparation work, I think it's Cat A, you want to be able to recover the cost days ahead of the storm when you've deviated from normal workflow and you're starting to do preparations. So what we would do is we would advance the tier of emergency incident within our community so that when GEMA and FEMA came back around on the backside, we could count those pre-event costs towards our reimbursement. And then as the event got landfall, so to speak, we were at the highest level, and then our people were deployed at City Hall and other shelters, 24/7, and we were recovering all of those costs. And what you learn as you try and recover money from FEMA, these policies and their details are critical in terms of getting the level of reimbursement that's going to make you whole on the money that you're going to outlay leading up to the storm, during the storm, and then, of course, after the storm. On the resource preparation side, debris monitors, debris haulers, but our debris monitor also had a lot of skill and proficiency in public assistance. That was what we procured. The debris was over in 6 months. Here we are 3 years later with Hurricane Matthew. We've got a pending $650,000 reimbursement request in for damages we incurred to our water and sewer system that we've been fixing over the last several years. And our PA consultant worked real hard with FEMA to get these rehab costs and these replacement costs covered under the Matthew event. So we got the original money back, about $1 million, that had a lot to do with debris and manpower costs. And now we're kind of in the second phase of reimbursement from Matthew that have to do with wastewater plant issues and system issues that occurred as a result. So having a really good PA consultant that's going to really look for and identify where you can find the connection between the event and the damages in your community is critical. We're now doing an HMGP also is kind of the third phase of all that. I'll kind of, and in the end, the financial recovery success that we're having has been very good. And we expect that we'll do very well on this latest submittal, and we've got the tools in place that if there's a hurricane this year or a tornado or whatever comes next, we're going to be well prepared. Lastly, on the blue sky stuff, Chatham Emergency Management is a wonderful agency, does a lot of upfront coordination, hazard mitigation plans, all the different things, making sure that we're a partner with the county. We have a debris management plan, got us an extra 2.5% on the Cat B for debris management. All these things are kind of learned lessons, but nevertheless, be happy to share any of these policies with folks in the room. Anything we can do as people that have been through the event and lived to tell the story, would be happy to share.
Thank you, Ron. I appreciate that. Remember what I said about the mutual aid county manager to county manager? I think you got 3 or 4 of them sitting right here. You better put in your notebook.
Charles, let me just say this right quick for is it on? Can you hear?
Yeah, it is.
Real quick, one of the things that Ron just said was very vital. A lot of cities don't really have a great financial policy in regards to keeping adequate reserves. One of the biggest problems that cities after Michael hit were having, we met with some down southwest Georgia, is waiting for their FEMA reimbursement back, maybe a year and a half. You gotta float those cash expenditures now. So if you don't have a healthy reserve to go ahead and deal with that, because I know you still gotta run the day-to-day operation, you gotta pay your people, you gotta procure items and things of that nature. It's gonna put you in a tight financial bind if you don't have those monies sitting out there in a reserve, 3 to 6 months or whatever you need to do, whatever's healthy for you. So good point, Ron. That's very vital. So just want to bring that up.
Stan, how tight are we on time?
Good question. Yeah, about 10 minutes.
Okay, all right. Yes, sir.
Let me ditto Mr. Jacobs' comments. I'm on the council, we just passed our budget. One of the things that occurred with one about utilities, electric one, is how large we were trying to maintain the fund balance for this particular reason, a disaster. The pushback from the public, because we didn't actually prepare for that pushback, was, why are you keeping the fund balance so high? You don't need that much money to operate. You need to reduce it and reduce our fees for that same service. Well, now I have ammunition to show what's on the side.
Oh, yeah.
If I could follow up on that?
Sure.
I would go there. When I plan a budget, and my council is very careful about this, when we plan a budget, we plan so many months of operation in our fund balance. And I plan 2 storms. The recent storm we had was Irma. Our costs for Irma were over $5 million against the city. I was spending up to $50,000 a day in Irma. We were able to cover those costs. There were 2 good reasons for that. One, Gurma insurance carrier gave us $1 million upfront check to help us move forward. That's why I always stay with municipal insurers. They are excellent. You get the $1 million up front. I was owed from GMA and FEMA about $1.7 million. That money comes in slowly because of the rules and regulations. If you're planning on getting that GMA and FEMA money back to reimburse you quickly, not going to happen. You have to plan on 6 months, 9 months, a year. Currently, I'm waiting for $280,000 from FEMA and GMA. They have the money, they have it set aside, but I had to get rid of 37 boats that were thrown up on land or sunk to get that final money back. I had to go to Superior Court. It took me 2 years. Those boats disappeared this week. So to give some idea, patience is very important when you're working with the funds, and you need that fund balance because you have to cover bills. The last thing you want to do in a storm is to do a tax anticipation note. If you go out and do a TAN, you're just adding to the cost of your storm. Maintain a decent fund balance. I would love to use that money for a million other projects in the city that the citizens say are absolutely important, or lower the tax rate. But in all reality, if we don't keep those reserves as a tier 1 community for storm, we're not going to be able to survive our next storm. So thank you. Thank you.
Can I say one thing on that? Sir, the Governmental Finance Officers Association, GFOA, has guidance on what your general fund and your enterprise fund balance percentages should be. Just have your finance director get the GFOA documentation on that, and that'll give you a third-party justification for why they are going to be set at a certain level.
Well, that's one reason why we raised it up.
Yeah, I was going to share, I was going to echo what John talked about. Matthew helped prepare us for Irma. Right, John?
Yes.
Matthew really did help prepare us for Irma because we were not prepared as well as we should have been for Matthew. And John and his team helped ensure that we were more than adequately prepared for Irma. Not knowing Irma was going to be 5 to 6 times the storm that Matthew was. And we're building it back better, as the mayor stated, and we're getting there. But we were very fortunate with John's leadership and the team that we have with council and the staff to work this out. We're doing good. We're doing very well.
And I have to reiterate Ron's comments on one thing. When you're preparing for a storm, do yourself a favor, have triggering, I call them triggering contracts because I come from different states. What you want is contracts with various individuals. You want to have contracts with someone that can check your loads that are coming in. You want to have contracts for debris pickup. You want to have contracts to help with your assessments. You want to have an engineer on board ready to go that you can bring in to add to your assets. But you need those contracts written to
Executed.
written and executed to meet the Papa G requirements, which is the Bible that GEMA and FEMA follow. If they don't,
handout right out there. Don't forget.
and believe me, the Papa G is their Bible. If you ever get a chance to read it, it's great to put on your bedside table. I guarantee you, you will be out before you know it. But you need to follow that, and your purchasing guidelines must follow the Papa G guidelines, which then have to follow the state guidelines, who do follow the Papa G, and then you have to update yours. We update our purchasing guidelines now annually because we try and follow the federal guidelines. We just keep looking at them. How do we keep changing them? We just finished a meeting with all of our contractors that are on our emergency contracts, advising them, this is the person who will call you if we have to trigger your contract. This is how long we want it that you will be in, ready to service us. We will have you on board until such time as we release you. But have those contracts.
The other thing we've done is we've got 3 debris contractors. We've got a primary, a secondary, and a third one. Because as when Irma happened down in Florida and Matthew and multiple cities are being affected along the coastline, these guys start to mobilize out. So your first guy might actually be covered up. So you go to your second guy. But the scope and the program they're going to bring to you, all 3, is the same. And what I want to add to what John's saying is we did a lot of add-ons in our most recent debris hauler thing where they're just not going to haul debris anymore. Now we're saying in the contract, we need you to bring us generators, equipment, fuel. And we just really started to pile on the components that we knew we were going to need from them to make sure that when you go into Web EOC and you start looking for resources and you can't find them, a generator or something like that, you're putting that on your contractor to pre-plan for that. And then you have 3 contractors in place so that between the 3 of them, you should be able to get the resources you need, even if the wind's blowing and the rain's coming and everything's going crazy.
Yeah,
So
that's smart. I was in Florida well, gosh, I forgot now which one it was, I believe. And so Texas had all the debris people.
Yep.
Florida couldn't even get any debris people, you know, to come in. So they're always national companies. So, but as I close, I'm just going to do it in a real rapid fire manner. I did want to draw the analogy. Director Bryson said the average award for individual assistance, $2,000. Would you want to guess what the average insurance award would be in that same event? Anybody want to guess? 109,000. 2,000, 109,000. Which would you rather have? Insurance. Other thing, please don't hang your hat on your public buildings and contents forevermore being guaranteed payment by FEMA. It is in the crosshairs. It's on the hit list. I think in my lifetime I'll see that go away. They think you need insurance. Now I know it's going to be a fight in Congress and all that kind of thing, but it is in the crosshairs. The other thing I mentioned, Director Bryson talked about the hazard mitigation. There's great news with that. Used to, you pretty much had to have a disaster in the state to get hazard mitigation. Now, there's going to be a huge influx of cash next year for pre-disaster mitigation. It's called BRIC, Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities, and they're estimating $600 million nationally, and Director Bryson's group is the very best in the country at getting that money. So that's what I would say. And Stan, I'll get it back to you.
I'm sorry that we're out of time. We knew it was going to be a constrained time period here for this particular session, but I did want to let everyone know we were going to hold regional sessions probably in September, mostly in the southern half of the state, Thomasville, Statesboro, places like Brunswick, places like that, where it will be a half-a-day session, and we'll have Charlie English in these sessions as well, and some other folks. So. Please watch out for these particular dates. They'll be posted with LGRMS, and we'll send out notices to your cities. But otherwise, we really appreciate you being here in the convention and in this session.